Buenos Aires is the capital city of Argentina and one of the largest cities in Latin America. About 1/3 of the Argentine population resides in Buenos Aires. The city residents are known as porteños, which means people of the port, because many of them arrived by boat from Europe. In fact, 62% of porteños have Italian roots. Many others come from Spanish, French, and German origins. With its European influence, Buenos Aires is often dubbed the Paris of South America. The city was essentially founded twice. The first time, settlers were pushed out by the indigenous population. The second time, the city was taken over by Spanish colonizers in 1580. Buenos Aires soon became a major player in international trade, exporting cereals, cattle hides, and dried beef to Brazil and the Caribbean islands. British troops attempted to overtake the city twice, but the Argentines held strong. This instilled a major sense of Argentine nationalism and pride that still exists today. In 1810, Buenos Aires decided to cut ties with Spain to officially become independent. As the rest of Argentina was still ruled by Spain, there was a sense of distance between the city and the rest of the nation. Nevertheless, the city began to flourish. Rio de la Plata, the river that lines the city, became a major port for transportation of goods. The port receives imports of machine-made goods and consumer durables, while exporting grains and agricultural byproducts. By World War I, Argentina had become the world's #1 exporter of agricultural goods. Today, agriculture accounts for 40% of the Argentine economy. In the 1940s, Army General Juan Perón came into power. His leadership was strong and often seen as dictatorial. Anti-Perón forces staged a military coup in 1955, killing over 300 people and removing him from power.
The days of dictator Juan Perón are numbered as riot succeeds riot in Buenos Aires and the entire nation seethes with unrest. Troops are kept on the move, quelling local disturbances brought about by economic upheaval and persecution of the church during the strongman's 10-year regime.
Fast forward to the 1970s, the nation experienced a violent period known as the Dirty War, when over 30,000 people were killed or went missing. After this US-backed crackdown on socialism, Argentina faced a surge of neoliberal policies. Both the Argentine government and Argentine corporations were taking out massive loans as privatization and big business became the country's focal point. However, this caused the nation to quickly spiral into colossal debt. From then on, the nation has fallen in and out of economic crises. Today, inflation has risen above 50%. Interest rates have skyrocketed over 60%, and the peso has depreciated to half of its value since the start of 2019.
The nation's Merval stock index fell by nearly 40% in just a few hours. That's the largest one-day drop of any stock market in the world in the past 50 years.
The government is pressuring producers and says it's doing everything in its power to bring down prices, but clearly it's going to have to try a lot harder.
A few days ago, there was an attempt to loot a supermarket in the neighborhood. Similar situations happened in other parts of Argentina.
The city of Buenos Aires faces massive inequalities, and 1/3 of inhabitants live in poverty. Of those who reside in informal settlements, 1 in 10 have access to running water, and only 1 in 20 have a functional sewage system. The nation has received an unprecedented $50 billion emergency loan from the International Monetary Fund in the hopes of assuaging their economic failure. On top of financial struggles, Buenos Aires suffers from a severe flooding issue. Over the past 2 decades, 11 floods have created $4.5 billion in losses and have impacted the lives of 5.5 million individuals. When weather conditions are forecasted to hurt Argentine crops, international prices quickly drop. As the sea level continues to rise, Buenos Aires is at an increasingly greater risk for flooding. In response to the issue of flooding, property developers have converted cheap, low-lying, and flood-prone areas into gated neighborhoods filled with luxury real estate. Through the movement of earth from wetland areas, these developers create landfills that elevate the ground above sea level and prevent the risk of flooding. In doing so, they manufacture new topographical landscapes that introduce artificial features such as lakes, canals, and marinas. These seemingly natural features further attract wealthy buyers to the neighborhoods, which are gated and highly securitized. The installation of these landfills has major repercussions on the surrounding areas. Poor, marginalized groups on the outskirts of these gated communities experience intensified flooding as a result of the transformation of their surrounding ecosystems.
And there's shelters that are packed with people, most of them poor people that have lost everything they own. They're living with whatever little they have left. There's children with no diapers, no water. The government is struggling to give people some food and some of their basic needs.
The World Bank has recognized flooding as an issue in Buenos Aires and has pledged $200 million to implement a flood risk management plan. Their main goals are to facilitate communication and flooding procedures, to reduce losses of assets like home and cars, and to decrease traffic congestion within the city. But nowhere in their plan do they mention the need to ameliorate the unequal experiences of flooding by socioeconomic status. Therefore, for my Global City project, I would like to focus on the economic crisis, flooding, and neoliberalism in Buenos Aires. I want to further explore how neoliberal policies are favoring big corporations while disadvantaging the city's large impoverished community, and how that relates to flooding. I will also want to investigate the intersection of economics and the environment and the social repercussions of disaster capitalism in Buenos Aires.